Hey guys, it's Jane. Top 5 Wednesday, and this week's topic is top 5 couples. Now, I actually found this pretty difficult, but I think I have managed to come up with a legitimate, maybe not all-time top 5, I couldn't say, but 5 couples, 5 romances in stories that the romance itself has really captured me. So, with no further ado, let's go. The first one, Dorothy Sayers, most of her, not all, but most of her popular fiction centres around a detective by the name of Lord Peter Wimsey, whose family motto is, "As my whimsy takes me." In this one, in Strong Poison, he meets a woman who he falls for. It's Harriet Vane. She is accused of the murder of her lover, so she's in prison. He reads about the story in the paper and comes to see her and tells her he thinks she's innocent and proposes, basically. And she thinks he's a nutter. So this is the beginning of their love story, and he gets her in this book. He gets her off the murder rap, but she doesn't then fall into his arms. It actually takes a number of years and more books. Eventually, he wears her down, and then the end of the Lord Peter Wimsey story arc is they're married. I really enjoy that Harriet, she's a person in her own right. She's not just a damsel in distress, even though she is clearly a damsel in distress when he meets her. She is still a person in her own right. And she's hard to get. So she's not playing hard to get, but he actually has to work for her. So let's move on. Number 2. The Ground Beneath Her Feet by Salman Rushdie. It's fundamentally a love story. It's not just a love story, but the love story is the main element of this. It's the story of Vina and Ormus, who are 2 kids from Bombay who grow up to be the world's greatest rock stars. She's the singer, he's the songwriter. Pretty much at the opening of the novel is all of that falling apart. In some ways, it's a riff on the Orpheus and Eurydice story. It's a really thought-provoking work. The kind of star-crossed lovers, doomed love is really haunting. So that's my number 2. Number 3. When I started trying to figure this out, I made myself not cheat and just put all Jane Austen couples. I decided to limit myself to 1. And then I had all sorts of arguments with myself about which couple it should be. And I've ended up with this one, Elliot and Captain Wentworth, the girl who was once a beautiful young debutante of good family who was persuaded to turn down the proposal of a young naval officer of no particular fortune or name. And now time has marched on, and Anne is no longer a young blooming debutante, but is in fact past the age of considered eligibility and is still unmarried. So she is now kind of a nobody. And the young, obscure sailor has made good. Captain Wentworth is now a very eligible catch and comes back into Anne's life. It's a story about, can he forgive her? Can they find their way back? You really cheer. At the end, when they finally make their way back to each other, you're really cheering them on. So there's that. Number 4, Jane Grey and Eddie Russett from Shades of Grey. I can't actually tell you terribly much of this story without spoiling the book. Also, I can't tell you terribly much of the story because this is the first volume of an unfinished series, and by the end point of this book, we're still in a very unsatisfactory place as far as their relationship goes. It's not actually a love story, but I think I remember the love story in this more front of brain because it gets to such an unsatisfactory point when the book finishes. So, Mr. Ford, I want to know what happens to Eddie and Jane. It's a really good read. It's a dystopian with a comic touch, really interesting world. Shades of Grey. Yeah, fully I'm pulling for Eddie and Jane. Hey, there we go. That's number 4. And number 5. This isn't the world's greatest copy, but can you feel it? Can you feel it? It's a tome, and this is 1/3 of the story. I couldn't actually find the first, but in fact I think this is the volume that the couple that I'm interested in, it gets most of their airtime. And a lot of people tried to read these books and didn't manage it, and I completely get that, because it's way long-winded and way convoluted, but I love these books. And I particularly love Jack Shaftoe and Eliza, who most of this central volume is following their stories. There's a huge number of characters in this trilogy, but Eliza and Jack are just legendary. He is a classic ne'er-do-well. She is an absolute feisty kind of whatever. She's an escaped slave at the beginning of her storyline. She ends up a countess and a spy, and there's only a very particular kind of person who can do that. And Jack is classic, and he clearly loves her, but he is hopeless, and and they have a fantastic storyline. So that is my final couple, Jack and Eliza, from Neil Stephenson's Baroque trilogy. And that is me. That is me. I will talk to you later. Bye.